So we can begin the webinar now, and then as people join, then Kristen can just allow them in. Um, okay, so welcome to our webinar on practical solutions to ergonomic challenges in the heavy construction. I'm Erin Black, the Work Safely Program Development Leader, and we have Andrew Dolhe of A. Dolhe Ergonomics here to do the presentation today. We're excited about delivering this content for you guys, as well as knowing that it is a key injury driver in our industry, ergonomics, and we're hoping that people will find some practical solutions through this webinar. So we are recording the webinar. So please have your speakers muted, or your mics muted. We will open them up at the end for questions. If you do have questions as the presentation goes and you want to type it into the chat, at the end of the presentation, we can circle back to the chat and then address those questions as they were coming up. I'll bring them up with Andrew and we can circle back to them. We will be recording this. We will share this on our Safety Scoop emails that we send out, as well as it'll be a resource in the resource library on our website, where this webinar can be watched at a later date as well. So thank you for taking time out of your schedule to attend this webinar, especially at the end of the season when everything's very busy right now, with the weather changes, trying to wrap things up. And I will pass it on to Andrew for him to introduce himself.
Okay. Yes. So we'll make the introduction kind of short. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Dolhe, and I've been a certified professional ergonomist for a long time now, and came here in 1998 to work for Workplace Safety and Health. So that's a lot of stories and a long time ago for a number of years. And then in 2002, I worked 3 days a week for a place called the Occupational Health Center, which is funded by the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority. So we're like a clinic. So you could come to us for all health and safety type of resources, and I'll share some of that with you in a second. And then a couple of days a week, I do consulting, and since I guess 2004, I teach a 40-hour course at River College on sprains, strains, and ergonomics. So for those that may know me a little bit, I tend to put a lot of information in a short period of time, but going over what I promised, common hazards, I wrote it down, so I make sure I do it. Yeah, so everything I said in the abstract of I'm going to cover, plus more. So the good news is, being at the Occupational Health Center, we're healthcare and we're free. So you can easily call me there, or call me at this number, but call me at the OHC, and we'll talk about any specific issues you have at your workplace. Basically, we do capacity building there. So if we did a little bit of training for your safety committee, do a walkthrough, help you identify some problems, that's what we do. If you have, let's say, for example, an improvement order and you need a consultant's report or a risk assessment by yesterday, that's not us. All right, so we can talk more about that later. So in this time, and I'll stay after one for those that want to ask more questions and stuff like that. So why are we here dealing with these sprain strain injuries, whether government calls it musculoskeletal injury or repetitive strain injury? Oh boy, I've heard it called occupational overuse syndrome, cumulative trauma disorder. Well, it's all umbrella words for specific injuries that human beings get, both in work and outside of work. All right. So for those that are here, I don't know if you're sort of new and beginning to your safety knowledge and skills, or whether you've been actually doing MSI inspections and investigations. Maybe you've done some return to work and you have restrictions. But this world of knowledge about people, what we're good at, not so good at, and then the knowledge of the job in terms of job demands, working conditions. That's been going on for a very long time. There's a lot of resources out there, and it covers different things. So it's kind of interesting when I go to a workplace, some of them will say, "Hey, Andrew, our injuries are so high. What can we do to bring them down?" Or we had government come in and write some improvement orders. Or sometimes it's more on the other side of the coin, more of the quality improvements, continuous improvement, efficiency, production. So there are a lot of standards and guidelines that actually go into designing work that leads itself to industrial engineering or production efficiency and things like that. So in my 25, 30 years, I've dabbled in heavy construction a little bit here and there. Nothing huge, but I have some stuff to share with you. But on that note, whatever you hear between now and 1 o'clock, um, I always say to people, um, point A to point B. Point B is a better, safer workplace. How do you get there? Point A to point B. I don't care whether it's uh, risks and doing assessments, whether it's injury rates, WCB, whether it's safe work, safety culture, whether it's cost benefits, quality, it's all there. All right. But one more thing I want to bring to your attention. There's been a lot of work over the past number of years looking at pain medication that injured workers are on, specifically the really strong ones called opioids, and it's linked to MSIs, and it's linked to, I don't know what you want to call it, the vortex of doom, meaning you spiral downward. And ultimately there's some really bad things that happen to people that get addicted to these things, and they are addictive, and that's why there's a lot of research on it. So I don't know your industry too much from this perspective, but if you have some stories to share or some knowledge, preventing these MSIs going from day-to-day aches and pains and preventing it from turning into chronic disabling injuries has a lot of benefits besides WCB. All right. So look into that. There's been some webinars on that topic as well. Anyways, let's share this little bit of information for you. This is both actual costs and days lost when it comes to MSI and sort of theoretical too. So at the end of the day, there are a lot of injuries out there in workers that last 1 to 2 days. And in that sense, the costs are low to nothing. You know, they're off for a day or two, or maybe there's some return to work. And that's honestly a lot of them. Now, if you said, what's the average? Well, I can give you a number. I can say the average days lost is 48. So month and a half, and $4,000 of direct claims. Then WCB adds on all their other indirect costs as well. But there are a number of injuries that last a very long time, years. There are workers that will never come back to their existing job, and hence the costs can exponentially skyrocket. All right. So my world is very much day-to-day aches and pains right through to chronic disabling injuries. Now, this topic today isn't going to go through the basic ergonomic concepts and the basic principles and the understanding of MSIs. There's plenty of webinars out there where you can listen to me rant and rave for a couple of hours. But on that note, there's a lot of stuff that I think people, safety committees, managers should know about MSIs and the understanding of and such. But I just wanted to share that with you to kind of put into context. Okay. The next few minutes, I want to share some resources for you. So whether you're beginner, intermediate, or I do MSI stuff, return to work prevention, assessments, inspections, investigations, I do a lot of that. You'll still get something out of this too. Now, the first one here, I'm going to give you the website where you can download these for free, PDFs. All right. But basically, real quick, small business ergonomic case studies. This was a long time ago. Many workplaces that were under 50 workers, under 20 workers. So if big companies can have the resources to do things, what about the little guys in that sense? So there are case studies of before and after. What's the hazards? What's the solutions? What's the costs? What's the benefits? All right, this is what it would look like in 2005. I know that sounds dated, but the basic lessons learned and what the hazard is, how to assess it, and what to do, it's still the same. All right. So for those that are new, these are really good. For those that want sort of a lessons learned toolbox talk, you can pull one of these off and use it. Put it on your bulletin board for the safety talk of the week. But even though this one says automotive repair, there's a number of them that are construction related. All right. So going back to those that were around in 2004, 2005, spot the hazard, assess the risk, find a safer way every day. That was the theme of safe work. So that's how the case studies evolved. All right. So that's one of several resources right off the top I want you to be aware of. The second one is more of a resource guide. So back in the day, there wasn't a lot of ergonomics people, musculoskeletal injury specialist people out there helping companies. So we developed something called the Small Workplace Resource Guide. So in it, it's questions and answers about ergonomics and injuries. There's 20 hazards that identify what it is, what makes it worse, and ideas to make it better. And there's forms and checklists. So whether you're starting or somewhere else in the middle, you can use these basic checklists to get your safety program going for MSIs. All right. So again, it's a PDF. You can download it. This is the one that people say to me after all the years they get the most benefit from. So for example, there's a page saying forceful exertions. Well, what is that? And why is this a concern? And what makes it worse? And then the other page would be, all right, what can you do to make it better? And it's formatted with at the source of the problem, along the path, and at the level of the worker, sort of that textbook safety type of idea of making things better. All right. And then there's some more. So for those of you that are interested in return to work, making accommodations, this is another resource you can download. And basically it looks like this. Here is the chapter on low back injuries. Here are three key prevention principles, but also job accommodation principles, and then solution ideas. So if you say my worker is sitting a lot, what can I do? Standing, vibration, jarring motions, reaching, stooping, lifting, lowering, pushing, pulling, carrying. Okay, now the nice thing is these three return to work principles, job accommodation principles, basically it's the same for prevention. So you can take the low back, the hands, the legs, the neck, the shoulders, and create your own little basic ergonomic principles inspection sheet or investigation sheet based on that. All right. Okay. And there's an example of a worksheet that you can use to help you figure out the job and what changes can you make. Can you make any changes? What can you do for return to work? All right. So for all those listening out there, that excellent resource. Years later, another one, aging workforce case studies. So WCB at the time was giving out grants to organizations to do stuff because, hey, demographics is changing. Aging workers are becoming an issue. Well, I did the same small business case studies, but with aging workers. So you have the same idea, spot the hazard, assess risk, find a safe way every day. This one might actually be a little bit applicable to you. It's basically, it's farming, it's blind spots, it's vision issues. Now you say, oh, as I get older, my neck gets a little stiffer, it's hard to turn, reverse, all that kind of stuff. Well, stop. First you say, let's look at the job. All right. So for those that know me, there's injuries that occur to sports, hobbies, your own health conditions, past history. There's a lot of reasons why people put up their hand and say, my shoulder is sore. But I always say, hold on, wait, let's look at the job first. All right. So in this case, these case studies are all, let's look at the job first. The older workers are having issues, but what can you do? Anyways, I'd love to talk about this for hours, but real quick, the first thing they realized and they did assessment was blind spots. So let me just flip over here. You see in the top left-hand corner, they did a blind spot map. So basically, if you're an average height person and you're in front of the nose of this farm tractor, the first 6.5 feet in front, the worker, the operator can't see you. That's the blind spot. Now, obviously, reverse, looking behind you, you can't see behind you. That's why you have mirrors. But look at this one here in the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock position. Okay, that was the muffler, but it's not too bad. But they put an external aftermarket device. In this case, the GPS monitor. All right. So throwing this up there aftermarket created a bit of a blind spot. So no, it's not you getting older, right? Issues. It's what can we do? So they actually moved the monitor to a different position. They created this blind spot map for awareness, education. And see the symbol up here, red triangle with a black dot? That's the international symbol for blind spot. So they threw up a blind spot sticker as an awareness and things like that. All right. So in that resource for you, again, 40 of them before and after, some of them related to heavy construction, your industry, and even farming, but it's blind spots or lifting or vibration or anything else. Okay. So excellent resource. Go have a look. And this is where you're going to find it. They used to be housed on Safe Work Manitoba, but for accessibility, they revamped their website and basically does it meet the requirements for so all their resources are being looked at. Some are off, some are on. So right now, today, you won't find it on Safe Work Manitoba, maybe in the future. But right now on my website, dolhe.ca, you can go and find those resources. It's a PDF and you can link it and off you go. All right. Now, one more thing. I sort of learned how to create a website for another reason, called this thing, if you look at the top right-hand corner, it's called the Merit. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that shortly. So I had to create my own website to put an online calculator for an ergonomics tool called the Merit. So that's why I created this website and put this Merit at the top. And I don't know how to create websites, so I'm trying to make it work. So some of these highlights at the bottom don't work, but up here it says resources. Click on it, you'll get the resources. That I guarantee will work. Okay. Another place for you to get resources, especially these resource sheets, is where I work 3 days a week, called the Occupational Health Center. So if you go to our website, ohcmb.ca, a lot of resources for you. And under resource sheets, there are about, I don't know, 70 to 80 one-page resource sheets that you can use for tailgate talks or safety talks, new people, or just get a talk going. This is a popular one called Overuse of Handheld Devices. So at the end of the day, holding on to a device in your hands, where's the best place to hold it? Trick question, nowhere. Because if you hold it up high, good for your neck, not so much for your shoulders. Looking at a phone down, better for your hands and shoulders, but harder on your neck. And I also use this as a nice little introduction to talking about my world of sprains and strains. Because very quickly, you can be driving a car, get rear-ended Wednesday at 3:30, and you get the whiplash and you go, oh, the next day my neck is sore. So yes, you have strained the soft tissues, the muscles, the ligaments, the fascia, other parts of your neck, and they they turn into what's called whiplash, right? We all are familiar with that. But if I held on to a phone and I looked down, not for days, months, but years, looking down, you will actually warp the bones of your neck to be more flat. And you will start seeing a lot of people walking around with their head forward. So the ears, instead of being in line with the shoulders, it's more in front. And that's because these bones will warp over a long period of time. Okay, so not Wednesday at 3:30, acute, chronic, cumulative. All right. So there's a real medical word for it. I'm sure you've never heard of it. Cervical kyphosis. Again, you've probably never heard of it, but maybe you've heard of text neck, or before that, it was called turtleneck. Kind of like, how the turtle pops its head out of a shell. So that sort of thing. Okay. So very quickly, another day we talk about understanding these injuries, but this is a good introduction resource sheet, overuse of handheld devices, that gets you to start talking to people about short and long-term effects. All right. And then one more I thought was really great for those involved in return to work. The Institute for Work and Health out of Toronto partner up with some universities, and they came up with a software that really, really helps in the communication part of return to work. So there's something called JDAP, so jobs demands. So if you, the worker or the employer, are struggling with what to do to change jobs, not just the physical side, but the cognitive side to adapt a person's injuries, this software is award-winning software. And we have a webinar on the Occupational Health Center website that you can listen to this person, Monique, top right-hand corner. She can talk about it for an hour and a half about this JDAPT. And the other one is called Decide. So it's almost like I have some health conditions that I don't want to tell my supervisor workplace about, but it does need to be talked about for accommodations. So it really helps both the employer side and the worker side to know what they can or can't talk about or how to talk about chronic episodic health conditions that you're going to try to accommodate. All right. So that has a layer to ergonomics, and as a resource, 2 thumbs up. Go check it out. Institute for Work and Health. All right. Now, hazards and inspections. Okay. There's no such thing as a perfect job. Every job has something wrong with it. So how do you go from green, yellow, red in terms of hazards? Or if I have to do some inspections, how do I know? I see someone bending over. Is that bad? How bad? Or don't worry about it. So I'm going to give you some different ideas. So everyone here, get your pens out. Think about how you do inspections right now, and maybe I can give you some ideas on how to improve that. So one way is looking at a combination of hazards. So we know the more force you have in your hands, the more effort you have to put in, a little harder on your body. But how do you measure that? Repetition. Doing it once, hey, who cares? Doing it a couple of times a day, that's called stretching. It's good for you. But repetitively, continuously, that's called repetition. There's something about that that puts a little bit more wear and tear in the body. Awkward posture. So bending your wrist a little bit, fine. Bending it all the way, that's what we call awkward postures. And it shows someone they're sleeping, but basically it's lack of rest. So go, hard, 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 8, 10, 12-hour days versus breaking up the job or doing something different. So on a very, well, in the 1980s, when it comes to this physical ergonomic stuff, that's basically what we had. So safety people would come in, look at your job and go, well, I see a combination of these risk factors. Maybe that's why you're having injuries. But there's been a lot of research now. We can actually put numbers to this. We can basically draw a line in the sand and say, number, you're below it, you're fine. Number, you're way above it, wow. Or, oh, you're just sort of above that line in the sand. So right now, when it comes to ergonomics, the physical stuff, we can pretty much measure it and get an idea of what's going on. Okay. But for you, does this work? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But at least as a first layer, it's not just, hey, Andrew, I got a repetitive job. Yeah. So tell me more. Tell me about the motions and the repetition, the body positions and the duration, exertion, and stuff like that. Okay. Another way that I've taught committees is to call it what to look for in jobs. Again, under the idea of inspection. So the first one is fit, reach, and see. So you're walking around with your clipboard, you're out at the site, the work site, and you're looking at the workers and you're saying, can they fit into their cab of a machinery? Can they reach the controls of what they need to reach? And visually, can they see what they need to see? Or is there blind spots? Is there glare? Is there shadows? All right. So that's sort of another way of looking at it in terms of you're bending over and you're lifting. Well, are you fitting? Are you reaching? And can you see? Then there's not just forceful motions, but jerky, awkward motions. So right now, all work should be smooth motion. So if I walk around and I see someone fighting something jerky, that's quite hard on the body, actually. So we want to red flag that. There's something called direct pressure, but basically for those that work in offices, resting the wrist on a hard, sharp edge, or even the elbow on a hard, sharp edge as you're typing using the mouse, but rubbing here, that's called a direct pressure hazard. And that can cut off blood flow, give you irritation, numbness, tingling in the hands. Out in your line of work, if you see anybody using their hand as a hammer, or they have the butt end of a tool putting pressure on the palm of their hand as they're using it, or leaning on a piece of equipment, that's something to red flag, inspect, identify. Okay. Constrained body posture, that's a fancy word for static, or think of it as a microscope. If you're taking notes, put microscope. People grow up to look at microscopes all day long in laboratories. All right. So you're constrained, you're static, you're in one spot for a long period of time. That's a little harder on blood flow. And then repetition can be broken up into the frequency, how many times, the speed of motion, and how long. So that all plays a role in whether a job is okay or, oh, we might have a problem. So that's another thing that you might use for inspections or even investigation and such. Okay. Now this is another one. Again, you can get it out of that resource guide, that small workplace resource guide that I talked about. One of the sections has many checklists and forms. One of it is this, and it's simple yes or no. Okay, so it's not a number, it's just a yes or no. So there's the work motion of exertions, work postures, etc., etc. But it has some things, it breaks it down a little bit more. So if this is your cup of tea, as they say, great. If you're like, Andrew, I got enough documentation, give me something simple, well, you can turn that into something simple if you need to. However, I'm going to make a point. A lot of this world, at least for me, obviously, and those who are practiced in it, can spot things quite quickly and come up with ideas quite quickly. But I will say sometimes you miss things. So I will say it's nice to have a checklist, even though you may have it memorized, even though you might say it's obvious, boom, 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 it reminds you on things to look at. So, for example, very quickly, this is a worker at a food processing place where they have to use a pressure washer for 2-3 hours. Constant gripping, constant holding, constant work in a wet environment with rubber boots. So everyone says, your shoulders, your back is sore. It's because you're holding the pressure washer and you're doing all this motion, etc., etc., etc. Force repetition posture, off you go. What do we do? Well, by going through that checklist, they also identify two other things. One being the drag of the hose. So as you're moving, this hose gets caught. Sometimes it gets curled on itself and it puts a little extra jerky motion on the wrist. So yes, there's constant squeezing, holding, moving, but every once in a while you get this jerky motion due to the hose. That's one thing. The other one is the left foot. Notice the lower leg on the left and technically the hip and the lower back. For some reason, this person just stepped with their left leg towards the right and then moved counterclockwise. And that was sort of their motion. That is how they did their work. Now, you can't really see me do it, but let's just exaggerate this. Let's really put a big twist on the knee and the hip as it goes into the back. And as you twist more, this right shoulder comes up and out. So anytime you're winging the elbow out, it's putting more strain up here on the shoulder. So why are they having back and shoulder issues? Is it force repetition posture, basic stuff? Or is it using that checklist? The committee identified that left foot and the hose. Okay. So now, okay, so solutions now, they put an engineering fix, which was a 360-degree swivel on the hose. So as they're moving around, the hose is spinning with you, so it's no longer getting tangled. So no more jerky, unexpected, forceful exertions on the wrist. And the other one was training. Awareness. Now, breaking up bad habits is hard, but this is a good example of whatever you want to call it: safe work procedure, work method training, education, awareness, whatever you want to call it. It was step with your right foot to the right and then move and then move steady over one foot. I don't want to say dancing because that will make people laugh at me. But if you think of people who know how to do ballroom dancing or whatever, it's smooth and you don't put a lot of twist on the knee and the hip. Okay, so let's take a step back. Hey, workers, can we change how we move so there's less twisting on the hip and the knee? Okay. Anyways, as I said, I can talk for a long, long time and tell lots of stories. So the next one for inspections is not so much looking for everything bad. You can maybe look at what is a good job. All right. So when you're doing inspections, I've seen some workplaces flip it to more of the preventative side and say, okay, under the idea of what is a good job, we should optimize work. So the mechanical loads, so the forces, okay, we don't want it super heavy and we don't want someone standing there with nothing in their hands, but they're just looking. Here. So light is office workers. Are there heavy, forceful exertions in office workers? No. But do office workers still grip a mouse? Yes. But do you grip a mouse and use it a little bit or a lot? Do you grip a mouse that's too small for your hand so you actually grip it harder? Or the space you have for the mouse is so small that instead of your arm motions, you got more wrist motions? So, anyways, it's more to it than that. But basically, human beings do need to move. We can lift, pull, push, carry. It's just the extremes. Okay. Under that, the intensity work, the static muscular loads, reduce highly repetitive work, and providing adequate recovery. So, on one note, if you want to take a picture of this, post it up in your office, if you're a safety manager or coordinator, and say, what's a good job? That's a good job. So if you want to somehow turn that into inspection, feel free to go ahead. All right. Now, under the idea of identifying problems, most people do job hazard analysis, job hazard assessments, where you have a frequency amount, you have a duration exposure, you have a severity, you have a probability, and then at the end of the day, what's the priority? This does not work for MSIs. Okay, a couple of reasons. MSIs, musculoskeletal injuries, are multifactorial with a range of outcomes. So when it comes to severity, you cannot tell whether it's a muscle strain lasts a day or two, or a herniated disc, a facet joint irritation, or what's the other word I used? Impingement of the femoral nerve. Well, that's sciatica, right? So looking at a job, doing a job hazard assessment, when it comes to how bad is this, it always ends up being 3. It's never no time loss and it's never fatality. It's 3. So technically, everything is a 3 in that sense. Now, we also know that jobs cause it, yes, but there are jobs that really aggravate existing problems. And that's a whole big part of, I think, now in work is a lot of the things that I get asked to come out and help people with. It's not the red light hazard jobs. People know what a red light job is and what can we do to make it better. It's the yellow light jobs. I know there's some issues, but is it really that bad? Andrew, kind of help us out, right? So this idea of severity doesn't really work for traditional. And then, of course, the next part, probability. Like I can say that 70% of people who smoke like a chimney will probably develop some kind of lung throat problem. Okay, I can't say which ones of you, even if you smoke a lot, I can't say you will, but the probability is based on epidemiological studies, odds ratios, generalities, may include personal risk factors. So when it comes to MSI, very difficult to do. There are studies out there, but the average person, safety professional, does not have access to it. Again, how am I supposed to know whether this job is increasing the risk a little bit or a lot? It doesn't work. So forever and ever, we teach people when you're doing an assessment, when you're looking at a job, you have observations based on your now experience and knowledge and checklists. There's lots of checklists out there that you can learn to use and do. The next one is also putting a layer of worker consultation, meaning not just tap someone on the shoulder and say, how are you doing today? But there's a systematic method of doing body mapping, hazard mapping, ergonomic surveys, injury statistics. All right. So any health and safety textbook out there has a chapter on involving workers and consulting workers. So when it comes to an assessment, you put that layer on. There are a lot of standards and guidelines out there, so you can buy them, you can get the textbooks, you can go to libraries and find it out. But that's the other layer. And finally, if you're still unsure, you would hire a consultant who would do what's called a technical assessment. They would do biomechanical modeling, or they do some high end stuff, so that at the end of the day, you can say, this is a bad job. We need to invest resources to make it better, or this job is okay, or this job's sort of in the middle, meaning it's not really going to cause injuries, but I would still expect a worker here and there to have a sore hand, sore shoulder, sore back, or return to work. This will definitely keep someone from returning to work. What can we do to make this job better in that sense? Okay, so on that note, I will never go to the labor board or WCB appeal or anything like that, or go to a management and say, you need to, that, or well, one, this job caused the injury, or management, you need to invest $15,000, $20,000 to fix this job because the checklist says it's bad. Never, never, never. You have to put all of this together to be confident in sort of what you're doing. So for those of here that have either taken my course at Red River, and I know I've done some construction people in the past, or you've read about this yourself. There are things called the NIOSH lifting equations for lifting. There's things called Snook tables for pushing, pulling, lifting, carrying. There's something called REBA, Rapid Entire Body Assessment. Anyways, there's also ones for the hand, revised strain index and things like that. So maybe you're familiar with ACGIH, the parts per million in the chemicals. Well, they have something for the hand, arm, they have a lifting, there's all kinds of stuff. All right, so today's talk is not about assessment tools, but they are out there to help you figure out that line in the sand and what to do about it. All right, but but a lot of these jobs are not, or a lot of these assessment tools and checklists are kind of looking at the typical assembly line job. This is what I do, and this is all I do. Okay. So many years, research is saying, well, what if I had a job where you're driving for a bit, going into the back of the van, doing repairs, pushing, pulling, awkward body postures, and doing something in the bottom right-hand corner, lots of heavy weight and force, once in a while, but very weight heavy force. So the idea has usually been to break everything down to its individual task, do the assessment per task, and then somehow say, well, if all I did this for 8 hours, what would it be? Or if I only did it for 1 hour each, what would it be? So it doesn't really work all that much. So that kind of brought me into something called the merit that I talked about earlier. Very quickly in 2019, I received a WCB grant to take an existing Excel-based assessment tool for manufacturing and validate it. Meaning it's not just a number that someone in the back room goes, ooh, 14, that's bad. Ooh, 7, that's okay. So it was a research study to take this assessment tool, make it available to everybody, and validate it. So that was called the Manufacturing Ergonomic Risk Evaluation Tool. Then people said, hey, Andrew, this is really good. It's easy to use. I like it. It gives some good numbers. It has valid numbers, so I can trust it. But does it work for jobs with multiple tasks? Does it work for healthcare? Does it work for construction? Does it work for I'm in a different place every day as opposed to manufacturing? And I said, it should, but I can't actually say it does officially. So a couple of years ago, got another WCB grant to do a couple of things. Make this for uncontrolled environments, unexpected jobs, jobs where I have many tasks going all over the place, and validate it, and not just make it Excel, but make it a web-based version that anybody can use. All right. So as of right now, it's done. There's a resource guide. There's an online calculator. I just have to get official WCB 2 thumbs up to officially put it out there. So right now, if you go to my website, in the top right hand corner, it'll say merit. You can click on the merit and well, hold on. And that's what you'll get. Okay. You'll get something on the left hand side saying the element is called access to work, and you're going to make a decision as to whether it's knee height, floor height, far reaches, overhead, or more in front. And then you're going to break up the job into 3 tasks, and you're going to drop down menu, pick, pick, pick. Okay, so really quick, going back in 2019, it was Excel based. And as you see, there's actually 12 different things to identify and select. And then at the very bottom, it gives 3 numbers: a cumulative score, a high force score, and a force and body position score. Okay, so today's talk is not to teach it to you. That's another day if you want. There's going to be a resource guide, and there's a manual on how to use it, and there's a resource guide of 40 examples that I'm going to get into real quick for you, but that'll be available shortly, hopefully by the end of December. All right, maybe end of November, maybe end of December. I don't know. I just have to wait for Safe Work to give me the 2 thumbs up. So that's kind of what it looks like, right? And at the end of the day, even if I had 2 hours to teach you how to use it, that's not how you learn. You learn by playing with it. So I have no problem with you going out there and kind of playing around with it. So at the end of the day, you involve your own expert experience on what the top 3 tasks are, and you involve the workers, and you come to a consensus of, all right, these are the 3 tasks. So let's say you had 10 tasks. Let's say my worker does 10 different things on a different day, on a different week, seasonal, or depends on the project. So you can look at it as worst case, you can look at it as average, you can do it per day, per task if you really wanted to, or not per task, per project, and the project changes every week, you can then do it in that sense. All right. So I know I'm kind of going fast, but basically it's kind of cool. It does work. And when you see it, there's actually numbers that go with it as well. So in the resource guide, once you get access to it, it's not just going to say overhead. It's going to say, are you reaching above 68 inches? Okay. And it has this information for speed, motion, static work, the force. Now, whether you measure the force or you give it a none, light, hard, very hard, or barely noticeable, noticeable, obvious, sustained effort, that you can play around with. That's the best way to learn. You can pick your numbers. There's duration of process, repetition, something called duration of exertion. Oh, look, vibration, direct pressure, contact stress, pinch grip, vision, temperature, and time pressure. All right. So just let you know, it looks like a lot overwhelming, but once you play with it, it'll get better and better. And then there's psychosocial issues. So, wow, I could talk hours about this, but right now, we do know there's a link between psychosocial issues or stress and reporting of injuries. All right. So later on, take a moment to read the text of what I put down there. This is like where force repetition posture was in the 1980s. I can't give you a number, but I can tell you there's something about jobs that are designed like this that increase the reporting of injuries, but also decreases the reporting injuries. So take a step back. And if you're interested in developing a safety culture with looking at psychosocial risk, stress, mental health stuff, this plays a role. So you can use this checklist to either increase the risk a little bit, decrease it, or keep it neutral. All right. And then there's an output. Again, for sake of time, there's your 3 tasks. And in yellow, this is an example from a nurse doing all kinds of tasks, but the top 3 were preparing meds on a cart, maneuvering the cart in the hall down the individual rooms, and then giving meds plus all the other stuff. So at the end of the day, one of the 3 numbers per task was red. That's okay. My resource guide, when you read it, will say 2 or 3 out of each task. If they're red, it's a problem. Okay, so Prep meds, you can see there's three numbers, maneuvering cart three numbers, and task three giving meds, there's three numbers. You see a red 9.7 and a red 5.8. So there's something there, but I'm okay with it. And then a total job score at the bottom, greater than 20. This is 19. So I'm just below that line. So would I be surprised if a nurse said, or healthcare nurse would say, my shoulder's sore, my back is sore? Well, I wouldn't be surprised, but it's not like, oh no, the sky is falling. This is the worst job ever. All right. However, that's that example. Here's another one of a laboratory. Now, this is a good example of Andrew. We do different things every single day. I can be doing microscope for half an hour to all 8 hours. Pipetting work. That's remember high school, I had to take that little pipette and take liquid from one place to another. Very repetitive, thumb pressure. And then fume hood work. So making sure the chemicals don't go in your face. So at the end of the day, each individual task, I only see one red, or for microscope, one red from fume. So I'm okay. I'm not too worried. But the overall total job at the end of the day scored right at the 20. So that makes it moderate. So at that point, you would say, okay, workers, there's something here. And what do we have to work with to make it better? Okay. And then a final example of a hazard would be, like I said, 2 out of the 3 or 3 out of the 3 for each task makes it a hazard, or the job score is over 20 as well. So this is back to sort of a service job where they're in the driver's seat, but they have a lot of documentation on the laptop and they're twisting for a period of time. They rated that as the hardest. Then the worker said going into the back of the service vehicle, turning, twisting to grab stuff, that was hard. Now, in my experience, I've seen well organized, very laid out backs of service vehicles, and I've seen where it's almost like hoarder, throw everything in there and try and find it. So the twisting, the reaching, the pulling. The actual outdoor service work that they did was good, 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 by the way. So it wasn't the typical, what's your job? My job is to service this equipment. Well, that itself wasn't that hard. It was the other tasks of documentation and obtaining equipment. All right. And I think I have well, I don't know if I have an example of that, but basically, instead of a laptop on the side, they put a tablet that would sit on a holder on the wheel. So now you're in front as opposed to twisting. And again, I already told you the solution for the back of a service vehicle was, decluttering it. Everything has its place. Maybe some lazy Susans to spin things, or drawers on wheels that can easily slide out. Anyways. Okay, so here are some, this is what my resource guide is going to look like once it's available. It's not available yet, but it will be. So the same idea of spot the hazard, assess the risk, find a safer way, costs and benefits. So all those others had what was the cost and the benefits. So this is one where the workers are saying, my knees hurt at the end of the day. I'm climbing up these steps that are made in-house. They're not the standard. Some are short, some are too long, rise and run. But also I'm inside equipment tight. I'm twisting, I'm standing in one spot, and then up and down, and I'm getting out of it. So at the end of the day, my knees hurt. Okay. So, all right, I can see that the rise and the run of the steps are not to standard. So we need to, rise, run appropriately, off you go. But what about inside? I know it's kind of tight, the repair side, but also stepping down. Is that sort of an issue too? So using this merit, all it really does is it forces you to look at all the tasks, and it forces you to get an idea what's going on. So the inside repair part wasn't that bad. The climbing up, yeah, there's more force strain on the knee because the rise is too high. So yeah, your knee is way higher than your hip. And then stepping down was also a problem. But the point is, the lesson here is it forced them the safety committee and I, to look at each task. And what they found out was as they stepped down on the final step, they turned. So all that body weight was going on the knee and twisting. And no one really realized it. It was just, hey, job's done, go down the stairs, go. So instead of going down straight and turning, they were turning as they stepped down at the same time. And I've seen that in the long haul truck industry too, where truck drivers, after 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of driving, get out and they kind of jump out or they land funny and they go, oh, my knees. But it's the down and turn. So on one side, it was a very obvious engineering fix to design the stairs to standard, but also they moved the railing from one side to the other, which basically forced the workers to land straight, go around the railing, and then move to wherever they had to go. Little bit of an extra step, but it definitely took a lot of strain off the knee. So again, to me, this isn't about the numbers and what it says. It's more of it's forcing you to systematically look at all the tasks and to see if there's anything else. All right. So that's the find a safer way. You can see the before and after, red, 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 and now it's a couple of reds and oh, 20, now you're at 20.6. Hey, you went from 24 to 20. I'm happy. The worker discomfort at the end of the time went from 5 to 2. Cost benefit payback period 11 weeks. Hey, done. All right. So now this online calculator, no account, no email, no data. I want to know nothing about you. Everything gets wiped. All right. So there again, there's no email, there's no name, there's no nothing. You just do the drop down boxes and it will pump out these numbers. All right. You will have to create your own database and go, okay, job, 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 job. What was the input numbers? What was the final calculated numbers? Actions. Okay. So I want nothing to do with you. All right. So when you log off, not log off, when you hit the X and say, I'm done, see you later, when you leave the website, it all gets erased. All right. So yeah, drawback, but then again, I want nothing to do with that kind of stuff. And neither does Safe Work Manitoba. All right, and WCB. So you can feel safe that no one's looking at your stuff, but you can also have extra work that you're going to have to take these numbers and put it into your own internal database somehow. All right, good. Something important to say. So for the sake of time, the numbers are good. So the validity of these numbers, it calls a bad job a bad job. It calls a good job. And the false negatives, the numbers are good. We'll just leave it at that. So you can trust it. Okay. Now those resource case studies, once they get approved, there's 40 of them. Some of them are construction, and even the ones that are not, a good lesson learned. Okay. So one of the final things I'm going to do, oh, it's 2 minutes to one, is later when you watch this recording or write this down now, this is what I teach my students at Red River College and safety committees. Once you collect all your information about a problem job, put the human in the middle. What do we know about the injuries? What do we know about the workers? And then what is it about the work system, the work method, the equipment used, the layout, and the environment that could be causing the problem? Usually it jumps out at you at that point. As opposed to a bunch of little things, the main thing jumps out. The flip side, I call it a brainstorming solution. So once you have all these ideas, what could work? What could lead to something else? So if you change your equipment, does that change the work method? If you change the layout, does that change anything else? So it's a good little tool to help you either find the root cause, but also go through solutions. So I already explained that one. The knees were sore. It's more than the obvious. The obvious was the stairs rise and run. Not obvious was the planting of the foot as they turned to the left. So in this case, move the rail to the other side. and that's under layout of the workstation. Okay. This is an example of someone that sat for a while, did some other work, and every once in a while had to do some lifting. So at 3:30 on a Wednesday, I bent over to pick up these parts. It's part of my job. I don't do it all the time, but that's where I hurt my back. Well, yes, but the assessment found it's not a problem. Okay. So what is a problem is sitting on a stool, stooped over for hours doing documentation work, and then jumping up and doing some lifting. Okay. So no checklist will cover all aspects of why workers get hurt. So on the bottom, I say, yes, Wednesday at 3:30, acute lifting strain. But I always say to investigators, ask the question, what were you doing the previous 3, 4, 5 injuries? What were you doing for the previous 3, 4, 5 hours? And if you get, I was stooping over a workbench, I was sitting and slouching, I was twisting, rotating, then I bent over to pick up a pencil and I hurt my back. Was it the pencil? Was that one time bending over? Not necessarily. So at the very bottom, it says still ergo principles. So whatever checklist you use, whatever you want to investigate, you still have to back off and say, wait a minute. We know that if there's a lot of strain on the muscles of the back, don't immediately go do some heavy lifting. Get up, stretch a little bit, walk a little bit, and awareness. So make sure you lift properly. All right. The next one involves something very obvious. Andrew, when we're done this process, we have to clean it. We got a rag, we got hot water, we have a sanitizer. It's hard on my shoulders, it hurts. It's obviously that. It's not inspecting, even though there's shadows. It's not necessarily waste disposal. Okay, I believe you. But still, I do believe in going through the process because something else might jump out at you. For example, they created a tub with sanitizer and hot water, and then they put the parts in. 5 minutes, they went to do something else, and then they came back and just wiped it off like melted butter. All right. So, yes, it's very obvious to say this task was what's hard, easy to identify. There's fatigue, yes, but through the brainstorm solution, through investigation, through looking at your tasks, it made you think, like, go back, look at the red. All three are red. All right. This isn't stretching. Oh, do some stretching and you'll be better. Do job rotation, you'll be better. No, we need something else. By the way, that's all good. And I have it here. Stretching is good, job rotation is good, but instead of that, we need to do more. And that more came through brainstorming an idea like that. And boy, is it ever fast and is it ever easy? Okay, so there's your kind of lesson learned on that. Vibration and jarring motions, yes, that occurs a lot for off-road construction or in the city potholes or rural roads, gravel or long haul driving. So basically, you need to measure vibration. And at the end of the day, some vibration was okay, some vibration was bad. There's the pothole vibration, and then there's actually vibration that comes off of a steering wheel. The problem is no one really has vibration testing equipment. So what do you do? And at the bottom there, I have the in text internal knowledge. So for those that have been around for a while, you know your company, you know when hand arm vibration is too much, you kind of break it down. So whether it's anti-vibration gloves or you say, okay, no one will use this tool longer than an hour off and on, or no one will use it more than 15 minutes straight, something like that. So I have found companies use internal guidelines based on their tools and their equipment. However, there is vibration testing equipment available if you really want to know how much hand arm vibration is going into the body or whole body. And there are standards and guidelines that are numbers are set in stone. All right. So we can talk about that too. Aaron, I only have a few more left. So I'm just going to fly through it. and then we'll have questions. All right. So this is a good one too, because this was a process where you're doing all these different tasks, but every once in a while you had to open up this handle, and it was done with one hand, and it was easy for the most part. But every once in a while, due to dirt, grime, or something jamming, that one hand you went to turn and it wouldn't go. And it would lead to, in ergonomics worlds, jarring, forceful exertions, which puts wear and tear on the shoulder, the elbow, and the hand. That's where it starts. All right. So it's what we call unexpected. I expected this handle to turn, but every once in a while it doesn't. So it's unexpected. And doing it with one arm, you really wrench your arm. So yes, it came out red, 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 red. So two things to make it better. One, equipment, and one, work method. The work method was, okay, workers, we're always going to use two hands. So whether it's easy or it's hard, two hands, you won't have the same strain. And they developed a tool that would slide on this and use leverage to open it up. So whether it was easy or whether it was hard, it would actually be better on the arm. Bottom corner in the middle, soft skills. That's the problem though. We all can probably give lots of examples of habits. Changing habits is hard. Proving to workers that this new method is better, enforcing it, trying to go to bed at night thinking, are my workers using the proper training that I've trained them on, or safe work procedure? So we can have another 1 or 2 hour lecture on developing better safe work procedures and methods training. That's a whole other topic. But one way is by showing numbers. One way is you can show a before and after graph, bar chart, whatever, of if you did it this way unexpectedly, this is where the red numbers are. And if you do it with two hands or this tool, look, everything is 2 thumbs up. You're fine. So I don't know what works with your workers or with management trying to get their buy-in. Remember, I said at the beginning of the day, point A to point B, a better, safer workplace. So if you can use checklist tools to give a number, to show before and after, to help people do it, great. All right. This is another example of parts that need to be worked on and sanded outdoor. So when you're outdoor throughout the year, different things are going on from the summer to the winter. So very quickly, that's where the issues were. So they decided to do more on the PPE side of coveralls with built-in knee pads. So instead of looking around for knee pads and putting them on, you had your coveralls, which you had to work on anyways, with the built-in knee pads so that when you're on your knee outdoor, it's not as bad. And also the gloves. All right. They actually looked at all the suppliers and all the gloves. They couldn't find anything that worked. But then we went to the urban tactical glove, where the police go, where the snipers go. So one, great sensation. They're not big and bulky. Two, water resistant, right? Not completely waterproof, but water resistant and not too hot. So they found a glove for construction that was designed for something else. So there's your lesson learned. Look for different things. Don't just look at the catalog and say, oh, this is only I got. Look for different things and such like that. And it also had some anti-vibration properties too. So it wasn't a wonder glove. There's problems, but at least it made it a little bit better. All right. This is maintenance. At the end of the day, it wasn't forced repetition posture. We need to make it better somehow. It's the connections of the pneumatic to the part, to the equipment. They relied on workers to tell them when it was jammed or dirty or not connecting properly. So basically, they went, you know what? When they do it, it is so hard on the wrists and their shoulders. We're going to do preventative maintenance. So we're not going to wait for the workers to tell us that there's an issue for the part or the tool. We're going to do it beforehand. And it brought it right down. All right. So again, the lesson is also maintenance, which right? For those that are here in safety, been around for a while. It's not just force repetition posture in that sense. All right. And this is a drill that would torque out, it would bind, and one hand on it, and then when it does bind the bit or it torques out, you get this really wrenching, very hard on the arm. The normal drilling and pushing, fine, but when it torques out, that is what's really hard. So basically, they added an extra handle. So instead of one hand, now it's two hands at almost a 45-degree angle with that shaped their hand. That also, they turn the angle so when you're holding it, your wrist is straight. You're not holding it with a bent wrist. So there's a little bit of a playing with it, but that, oh, as they say, mwah, that is what made the job a lot better. Okay. And then I don't know. I've seen this a lot in shovels, tools, screeds, mops, a D handle that's put on the middle of the shaft. Okay, so that is something I would put under the category of practical, cheap. Sometimes it works. Well, most of the time it works. Sometimes not so much. I've actually seen it work a lot with return to work because usually, oh, you got a bad knee, bad back, go do some sweeping or mopping. But if you don't do it the right way, oh, that can actually put a lot more strain on your shoulder and your back. So this D handle takes a little twist off your body, so hips, backs, neck, and it actually puts the arms in a better position. So that's good for the shoulders and the neck too. So whether this is a return to work practical example or a preventative example, D handles. Lee Valley has them. I'm sure other places have them too. So at the end of the day, I have my little lesson here called Safe Work Procedures. Um, More knowledge, less telling. So I, as an ergonomist, will never tell a worker how to do their job. Who am I to know your job or even to tell you? What I like to do is teach you basic principles of shoulder, backs, and hands, basketball, baseball, soccer rules, and then let the worker say, out of these 8 ways of mopping, here's 3 that we don't want to do anymore. But here's 5 that we can change how we mop in different ways, different times. It gives us variety. We like it. I'm happy. Okay, so at the end of the day, when you're trying to develop a safe work procedure, a little bit less of I'm telling you, and a little bit more of, at least for MSI, the sprains and strains, why the body works this way, how does it get hurt. So here's you tell me these safe work procedures that help. All right, so it's a little bit of both. All right, I'll skip that one. I'm done. Well, this was a hook that was made. It would not pass any safety inspection because there's no engineering stamp on it, but it was a hook to hold things. So instead of your arm above your head holding, the hook would do it, and then you just did your work. It's underneath a car automotive, but it worked. This one was pretty neat too because maintenance on equipment is for the most part a disaster. Machines are not designed necessarily for someone to fix it or repair it or maintain it. So in this case, they put the vital equipment on a pivot. So instead of you crawling in underneath all tight trying to work, it actually pivoted it out to give you more access. I thought that was really neat and cool. I don't know how it can be applied to other places, but again, it kind of has that thinking outside the box kind of thing too. Okay. And the last thing, and I'm done, and I know you all want to know this, that making pierogies is a-okay. So whether you're peeling pierogies, whether you're making 500 dozen, pinching, rolling, yeah, there's a little bit of red, but at the end of the day, according to the merit, you are a-okay. There's my laugh. Done? Done. Okay, everyone, how far did I go over? Oh, 13 minutes. Yeah, but you started me late. Okay, back to this. I stopped sharing. Okay, Aaron, how was that?
Thank you for that. Um, so we don't have any chat questions in the chat, but if you guys want to unmute yourself and ask any questions, we can take a couple minutes with Andrew, and he can answer any questions.
Yeah. If you want to talk about your own situations at your workplace, like I said, I haven't done tons of work, but I've dabbled with a few companies on different issues, not big program stuff yet, but individual issues and things like that. Did you learn something new? Ah, they all walked away. It's 1 o'clock. They're hungry.
Um, But I
Good
want to
news.
thank you,
Yeah.
Andrew, and
Okay.
the fact that you also have the resources available on your website,
Hmm.
because yes, a lot of the resources on the Safe Work Manitoba website have been taken down while they're working on updating them and making sure that they're current and
Yeah.
applicable. So it's great that you've got those documents that people can access them on your website. So that's great.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to providing more resources and initiatives and assistance around ergonomics as it relates specifically to heavy construction.
Hmm.
Um,
All right.
just got
Got some
more
thank
thank
yous.
you.
So
Yeah, thank yous in
very
the
good.
chat.
And the
So
good
yeah,
news is I'm
and
not
some
necessarily
thumbs
going
up. So
away because my 3 day a week is to provide help,
yeah,
capacity building help at the occupational health center. So call me here on my cell phone if you want. But my first question would be, do you want Andrew consultant coming out, or do you want free Andrew? I
right.
would for free Andrew to come out, meet with your committee, talk to you, talk about your issues, and see what we can do.
Yes.
All right. So thank you very much. I enjoyed my time.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right.